project is, and at the end, there'll be some questions, if you folks have any questions about the presentation. Okay, we all set?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you for coming, everyone here and anyone else out in the audience in the Zoom world. My name is Joe Tierney, and this is exciting. We have the Vinal Square Transportation Improvement Plan update that we're going to present this evening, and I want to welcome you all here. And this is also the Vinal Square Strategic Action Plan Committee meeting. And right here, I show my slides. This is, on the left side, you have our committee, and on the right are the folks that we deal with constantly to get things done for North Chelmsford and Vinal Square in and around town. And this committee acts as a liaison between the residents and the businesses with the town itself. We act as a vehicle to be able to get things done in the community, whether it's at Varney, the parks, anything in Vinal Square itself, or anything virtually part of North. We try to act on the community's behalf to try to work with the town and see whatever you need. So, again, my name is Joe Tierney, and I'm also joined here with Mike Walsh, Bill Gillette, Laura Lee, Brian Creamer, Laura Lynn Morey, and Joan Walters are all joining us remotely. And we also have Virginia Crocker-Timmons here as our Select Board liaison. And again, like I said, everybody on the screen, I don't need to read everybody off, but I appreciate them and their help that they support us with. So I wanted to make sure I put them on the screen as well. A few things to cover before we get into the presentation is, we're going to have Christine Clancy is joining us remote, and Bridget Myers.
And Angela Bleeker.
Angela Bleeker, sorry. Well, Bridget came with a guest. So they will be presenting the plan, and just a couple of brief updates I wanted to cover with everybody is this past year we've had an update, new Varney Playground, Ayotte Field, the new baseball field has been improved, and that's really fantastic. It just was about finished before the season, so it wasn't used by the high school, but that will be next year, so we appreciate the work that DPW did on both those pieces of real estate in the playground area and the park. Tingsboro Road, if you haven't already noticed, that sidewalk went in to connect Williamsburg to the square. It was almost like a precursor that we did with Mass DOT to be ahead of this project, and that had been on the radar for a while, so it was nice to see that get done. An update, not to really get into depth, but the Freeman Lake study has been completed. All the data is now being compiled to present, so that will be on a future meeting that we'll present as well, and Christine is working on that project to present to us at a future meeting, like I had said. If you've seen the new wayfinding signs that we've had on the horizon, it was just delayed because of the focus on the new Vinal Square. We didn't know, did we put them in? We are going to have them installed, and we were told that they'll be easily removed and put back up when the construction is made down the road. And that will be in the spring. They're just ordered, and I don't know if they're in DPW's house now, but they'll be installed in the spring. And lastly, there's a little bit of an addition. This is a project that Bill Gillette is working on, and we're not going to get into finer details, but that's a picture of a clock we're going to add to this project, and it's going to be a nice enhancement. And that's Bill's driving that with some other folks in town, and look out for fundraising and more information there. There'll be a chance to potentially buy a brick and just some other things. We have some people that are ramping up the efforts there, so there'll be more to come, but that'll be a nice enhancement. There'll be a temporary location, and then when the project's all well and done and finished, we're looking to potentially move it, and I have another slide showing, but that will be a temporary position right on the side near the municipal parking lot. Couple of things I just want to address here is, this past year, there's been a few things that have gone on, and, this committee does a fantastic job, and the team that I announced earlier, whether it be the town support or the group here, it's just been very busy like anybody else, but I just want to share some opportunities to get people more involved. And Varney Neighborhood Playground, if there's a potential phase two, if anybody wants to come up with any ideas or just even designate the open area at Varney Playground to have more activities or whatever, basically, this is a way to go over some bullets of other things to get more involved. So we have the beach, the courts, Aod Field, there's some nice real estate in the park area. So if you want to any parents out there want to create any new events or programs, this committee is a good vehicle to get involved with to help drive that. This past weekend, we had a successful tree lighting, our holiday tree lighting at Vinyl Square in the Common. Went over really well, and I'll get into my thank yous there. But if you weren't there, you missed a good time, and Santa came and really kicked it off nice by lighting the tree. The North Town Hall Committee, I want to give a shout out to the folks there. They also do a great job with the Halloween parade and party. And if anybody would like to get more involved with that too, we'd love to hear from you. Our friends at the library, there's a lot that goes on at the library. And Leslie Kimball has a great program there. She sent us some updates today. I won't get into them, but they have concerts, they had movie nights, and they have also a nice way to have a little extra extension of the library right in the neighborhood in the Varney Playground area. Tree planters, the tree planters and any of the beautification in the square, it's really nice. And what it has evolved from that too, the plants that we've had in the summer, we had the tree planters go in, and one thing I want to point out in the call here today in the meeting is that unfortunately 4 of them have gone down. We've eyed to try to buy new arborvitaes, and we have a source that we got them that was lasting a little bit better than some of the others, and just about time and bandwidth. If anybody would like to step up to contribute, it doesn't take much, but we're a little strapped to get those replaced, and now unfortunately they've become trash bins. So we have to address that. And virtually anything you'd like to do, this committee is a vehicle to get involved. Like I said, we had a great holiday tree lighting, and we were handing out these pamphlets. We have it every Saturday of every December, the first Saturday, of every December at 4:00. And if anybody records this or sees a recording, wants to scan the QR code, the top right QR code gets you to a great Christmas carol list, Santa's favorites, with some link to some YouTube music. And the bottom left QR code can take you to our Facebook page. It's the Friends of North Village Vinyl Square Facebook page, and we have all information like the meetings, any updates, anything to share. That's another nice community way to keep in touch. A thank you. I want to thank everybody here that is on this list. This will go out through that through the Facebook page, through email, but I want to give a shout out to all the folks here that participated. And on behalf of Brian Creamer, Laura Lynn Maury, myself, and Joan Walters, I want to give a special thanks to Steve Chauncey. Steve's here. And Karen Beretta for stepping up and really adding to the committee, because we could have used even a couple more hands, but there were more people that also stepped up that you see on the list here that at the event just gave a helping hand. But we have a lot of fun putting that event, but it almost didn't happen this year. That's pretty sad. We were able to pull it off. It was a Christmas miracle, an early Christmas miracle. But thanks to these people, I just wanted to give a shout out to the people that always help support us. And lastly, this is the picture, if you will. It's not to scale, but that's if When the fundraising done, the clock is built after, that's a sneak peek of the presentation, but ultimately, that's where potentially that clock could move in the center of the square, depending on how this all evolves. But that's just a sneak peek. What really will happen, we'll see, and we'll get more of a presentation here. And without further ado, and we'll save the questions even for me later, or you can always reach out to me via Facebook or my emails on the town website. Okay, Bridget,
All right.
it's all you.
Am I heard on Zoom?
Can you folks hear Bridget on Zoom?
Yes.
No,
Okay,
thank you.
great. All right, thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Bridget Myers. I'm a senior civil engineer from Howard Stein Hudson, and with me is Angela Bleeker. She is a traffic engineer working on this project. And we've got the MassDOT project number on here, but you all know this as the Vinal Square Safety Improvements Project. So you can go to the next slide. So a little project background, just kind of how we've gotten here. We actually came and talked to the committee way back in 2017. That was when we did a complete streets prioritization plan for the town that just kind of went over one of the results of that prioritization plan was a report that had a long list of potential complete streets type projects that the town could look into. And one of them, number 4 on the list, was Vinal Square. So we came and talked to the committee about, just some very rough potential concept ideas of what it could be if it ever went through a full transportation reconstruction project. A few years later, the town worked with NEMCOG, which is the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, to do a planning study, which I know they went and did some public outreach and put together feedback from that outreach of what the town is looking for Vinal Square. So then we helped the town initiate the project through MassDOT's system. This just gets it into their system and gives it a Mass DOT project number. That's like the very first step into moving it ahead through MassDOT's process. And then the town also received a one-stop grant to help assist with the design funding. Next slide. So some of the main goals that we saw from that NEMCOG study, biggest one was improving pedestrian, bike facilities, and accessibility throughout the square, improving traffic operations, intersection improvements, streetscape improvements, and parking. Next slide. And this is also kind of a list of what's gone on since then. So we started our work in 2023. We did our field work, survey, wetland flagging. We were assigned a Mass DOT project manager, so we started our talks with Mass DOT on that process. And right around that time is when they kind of implemented some new processes in the early stages of design. And I will briefly go over those, but ICE, you'll hear that a lot. That just stands for Intersection Control Evaluation. So we had to go through kind of a lengthy process there as like an upfront, just determining the best intersection type of the project. And then we did a pre-25% submittal back in September. Had what's called an over-the-shoulder meeting with MassDOT where their reviewers provide comments. And that's brought us here to this public information meeting. And then we're now working towards our 25% design. Next slide. So I mentioned the intersection control evaluation, known as ICE. So that's to consider multiple context-sensitive control strategies in a consistent manner when planning a new intersection. It just gives them kind of a formalized process to how they're evaluating all their projects, not just going in and saying, yeah, this is a signal or this is a roundabout. It's kind of to give all projects that same type of review to determine if that is the best type of intersection for the intersection. And it looks at a bunch of different aspects, but some of the big ones are safety, obviously, and then it also takes into account like cost. Is the cost worth the safety benefit? So, the first step, stage one, is a very high level review. You go through a quick spreadsheet, and it's just which ones are potential viable options. And so we did have to look at Vinal Square signalized and roundabout, Princeton Street at Middlesex Street. We had looked at two-way stop control, signalized, and roundabout. Next slide. I'm sure everyone probably is, how can you fit a roundabout in there? Operationally, it seems like it would be a great idea because you have all these streets coming into this one area. So in theory, it actually would have been nice, but it doesn't fit. We have a very, strange geometry. That is kind of the best thing that we came up with as far as the functional drawings. What you're seeing on the right side of the screen there, it was like a peanut-shaped roundabout, but we were impacting buildings. So that's kind of that kills it. But we have to go through, we do these functional sketches of different types of intersection types, and then they go through their forms. And like I said, you get to this cost-benefit analysis of, is this the most appropriate type of intersection for this project? And next slide, I think. Yeah, and so the results of that for what we're calling Vinal Square, that's the bigger intersection with, Groton Road and Dunstable and Watton and 3A, signalized as it is today. And then Middlesex Street intersection is remaining a two-way stop control. That was a close one. The signalized and the two-way stop control were sort of neck and neck there, but it came down to cost for that one. So the safety improvements there on that one didn't quite outweigh the cost of the signal. Because it was showing that the geometric improvements will provide some of that safety. Not to say down the line, that's not something that could be added, but that's where we're at right now. So there was a lot of back and forth reviews with MassDOT because with any new policies process is kind of a learning curve on both ends, growing pains and such, and so that did take quite a while. That wasn't expected in our design process, but got through it and we're here. So go to the next slide. So these are just kind of some of the crash data takeaways that we saw. That intersection, the larger Vinal Square intersection, is actually listed on MassDOT's high crash data. So it's in the 2019 to 2021, it was a high crash cluster. And some of the main ones that we saw were 9-angled crashes, where you have that movement of, people trying to take a left onto Groton and the southbound through. That was a big one that we saw. So some of the, potential ways to help with that is providing a protected left turn face on 3A northbound when you're taking a left onto Groton instead of the protected permitted. So you end up with the green arrow protected instead of, also dealing with southbound traffic. And then just some general intersection improvements, some tightening of turning movements and aligning lanes better. Next slide. At the Dunstable Road intersection, that was one that came up a lot because, as we know, it's very difficult to get out of Dunstable Road because it's stop controlled. Some of the feedback in that planning study was saying, people are blocking Groton Road westbound because people are trying to get out of Dunstable Road to get into the square. So we knew one of the main goals was to get Dunstable Road signalized so they would have their own phase and time to be able to get in and out of that side street. Next slide. Middlesex Street was a lot of rear end crashes with that channelized right turn lane because people take that right pretty quickly. You barely have to stop it. And some of the feedback was that a lot of people don't stop. So the countermeasures there is to remove that slip lane, and it would be more of a formalized right turn lane, bringing it at closer to like a 90-degree angle with Route 3A. That also opens up that corner for more streetscape improvements like the clock we saw in the earlier slides. Next slide. So now I just want to kind of cover some of the things that we have to consider when we're taking projects through Mass DOT review. And so Mass DOT will be funding the construction of this project, and Route 3A is a state road. So they will be reviewing, and we do have to abide by their design guidelines and policies. So one of those is the Healthy Transportation Policy, and that was implemented in 2013. In simplest terms, it just means that we have to consider, we have to be looking at pedestrian and bicycle improvements on all their projects on all roads. Next slide. And then in 2020, they did provide an update to this policy with an engineering directive. And that was mostly focused on bike accommodations and what type to provide based on speeds and volumes of roadways. And the one we're kind of ticking off here is on 3A. We've got volumes greater than 10,000 vehicles per day. So in those situations, they would look for a separated facility. So more than just like a painted bike lane on the road. They want to have some vertical or horizontal separation, whether that's a buffered bike lane, a separated bike lane, or a shared use path. Next slide. And the reason for that is kind of pretty well stated with this graphic. The people they're trying to focus on with their policy is this 60% of interested but concerned people who are somewhat interested. They might be interested in biking, but they don't because there's not a safe or comfortable place to do it. Not so much that 1%. Those are the people that you're probably already seeing out there now, and there's probably not many of them. But those are the people that are already riding out on the road. They'll ride anywhere, anytime. But what we're designing for more is the left side of trying to get more people who are potentially interested out on bikes. Next slide. So the general overall improvements that are included in this project are geometric improvements at intersections, new traffic signals at the Vinal Square at Dunstable Road intersections, ADA compliant sidewalks and ramps, safe bike accommodations, reconstructed pavement, new signage and striping, utility relocations as needed. There's some utility poles that are going to have to be shifted around, and some additional crosswalks. Next slide. So this is a kind of an overall view of the proposed design as it currently stands, and the next couple slides have more zoomed in, so you'll be able to kind of see it better. But so we can go back to this if needed, but it's probably best if we just go to the next slide and we can look closer at some of the areas. So at the Vinal Square intersection, so this will be acting like one big signalized intersection. So it acts as one intersection as far as like phasing and timing. It's all going to be on one controller, but there'll be signals down at Dunstable and Groton. There'll be signals for Route 3A, Watton. And it's a very large area. It's the geometry is coming in at angles, so it's a big, complicated intersection. So to get all the different phases right, is a struggle. But we did want to make sure that Dunstable Road can get out there. You now do have that area between Adams Street and Vinal Square. We do have some queuing space, so that stop line is brought up all the way to 3A. The curb is bumped out a bit for that right going around Dunstable Road. That'll just slow vehicles taking that right turn, so they're not kind of whipping in quickly. From the square, I'm trying to think of other things to go over here. We have the do not block the box in front of Adams Street. So we did talk with the town about this because we're trying to figure out what we wanted to avoid was people taking a left into Adams Street. So what I'm considering right now is having Adams Street be a right in, right out, which would, in essence, convert it back into a two-way two-way roadway, but it being a right in, right out, so we would avoid that issue where you'd have a vehicle trying to wait right there, trying to take a left, and clogging up the intersection. We have bike accommodations going down 3A, and there's a cross-section slide later on that'll go into that into more detail. But this is the general layout for what we're seeing for this intersection. So we can go to the next slide. So Middlesex Street, like I mentioned before, removing that slip lane. So that would essentially, that lane coming down Middlesex Street towards 3A, is primarily a right turn lane. That's the big movement. There's not many vehicles making the left turn movement, at least what we saw from the traffic counts. So it'll just slow vehicles down, taking that right turn, added crossings, added ramps, reconstructed sidewalks, the bike and ped combinations, and you do open up that corner for potential streetscape improvements, landscaping. And yeah, we can go to the next slide. So now we'll just kind of go through cross-section view. So this is for Route 3 at Tingsboro Road. So this is north of the signal, and this is looking south. So on the right side, that would be the hardware store. So what we have going from left to right is 5-foot sidewalk, a 2-foot buffer, and this, what's showing on the left side there is a separated bike lane. So it's up at sidewalk level. So you have the sidewalk, then there's a buffer between the bike lane and sidewalk, and then there's another buffer between the bike lane and the parking lane. And you want to have that buffer between the bike lane and the parking lane so you don't have the issue of bikes getting hit by vehicles opening their doors. We've got the 2 travel lanes in each direction. And then on the right side is just an at road grade buffered bike lane, and then a sidewalk, which varies in width. Next slide. Route 3A Vinal Square. So this is the area kind of between Groton Road and Middlesex. And here we have separated bike lanes on both sides of the road, as well as the parking lanes, the travel lanes, and you have that left turn lane that kind of is in both directions. Northbound, it's the left turn lane onto Groton, and then, going southbound, it switches over to the left turn lane onto Middlesex Street. There might be some areas where we ramp down the bike lane to be at road grade, a buffered bike lane. Sometimes when we're crossing a bunch of driveways, we don't want to, it's preferable not to have bikes kind of going up and down driveway openings. So we'd bring them down to the roadway level in those areas. Next slide. And that's just a photo of what a separated bike lane looks like. This is one that we did in actually East Milton Square, which is kind of a similar, downtown business district as Vinal Square. But you see that the bike lane itself is the asphalt. It's darker than the concrete sidewalk, so it has that kind of visual standout against the sidewalk. Next slide. So Route 3A Princeton Street. So now we're south of Middlesex Street. So this image is showing what's called a raised bike lane, where we don't have as much room, so we don't have the buffers, but we do want to get some of that vertical separation if possible. And again, this might not be everywhere. Again, we might have areas where we have to transition down to the buffered bike lanes, but sidewalks on both sides. And actually, if you go to the next slide, I have a better view of what a raised bike lane is. It's kind of in between the sidewalk and the road. So you have the road, and then there's like a 4-inch reveal curb, your bike lane, and then there's just a small 2-inch reveal, again, another step up towards the sidewalk just to get that vertical separation. And this image is taken from the MassDOT separated bike lane planning and design guide. Next slide. On Groton Road, this is looking east towards the square. On the left side, there's a 5-foot sidewalk, and then there's the parking lane, travel lanes in each direction. On the right side, 2-foot shoulder, and then a shared use path. The reason we did a shared use path here is because while this Groton Road didn't have the volumes to necessitate separated facilities, you still have to provide some bike facilities. So in this case, the shared use path actually works out better because it's taking up less space than if you had to have, 5-foot bike lanes on both sides, plus a 5-foot sidewalk. You still have to have that sidewalk. So you're looking at 15 feet with 2 bike lanes and a sidewalk versus 10 feet, you can get them all in one space because a shared use path covers bikes and pedestrians in one area. So that is kind of why this cross-section looks like it does, because this was kind of a tighter one. You got buildings on both sides, so space is more constrained. Next slide. Dunstable Road, also pretty constrained as far as what we could fit there, because you've got the buildings on both sides. And then the parking on the right side there, that's up against that property. I think the address is 1-13 Groton Road. It's residential building there, and from what we understand, their parking spaces are deeded to the building, because generally, even though we've tried, to push back on this, MassDOT generally does not take parking as a justification for not providing bike facilities. So that's, a battle we've tried to fight before. But in this case, because those ones are deeded, so we were able to maintain that parking lane on that side there. But we don't even be able to fit bike accommodations here just because of the constrained space with the buildings on both sides. You wouldn't even have been able to fit them there. So we have the sidewalks on both sides of the road, a varying shoulder on the left side, and parking on that right side. Next slide. Middlesex Street, similar to what I was saying with Groton Road as far as kind of the 2-for-1 you get with a shared use path. So that's why we have the shared use path on the left side there. On the right side is the common. So we have the parking lane along that side of the road with the sidewalk. And then we have the travel lanes and the turn lane. Next slide. So in terms of parking, because like I said, we have kind of constrained roadways where we're trying to fit everything in one area. There is an overall loss in parking with the overall design. A couple of reasons. One, what I just explained about, trying to fit everything within a cross section. And another reason is that there is the parking that's currently within the intersection is not supposed to be there even today. Like, it's not technically legal to have parking spaces within a signalized intersection. So we do lose some spaces right kind of like in between Watton and like the stop line on Route 3A there. So there are some spaces that we do lose right in the intersection there just because they are within the signalized intersection. So we're trying to look around, see other ways that we could get some parking back. One of them that we had discussed, I know we discussed it with Christine as a potential, is converting Wright Street to a one-way and adding a parking lane along the side there. From what we're seeing with the traffic counts, we think it makes most sense if it was one-way northbound. But obviously we'd like feedback from people on that, but that's just one way. And then we'll continue to look and see if there's any other way we can squeeze more in. We can always talk with the town about, any off-site parking or anything that, they've looked into as far as off-street parking. But that's just something, we wanted to bring up now just to let people know. And then why we were considering Wright Street as a one-way. Next slide. So the next steps in our schedule, like I said, we're working on our 25% design, which is a kind of a full package that goes to MassDOT with plans, estimates, kind of other reports that go along with that. They review, they provide comments, and then usually they do utility site walk, comment resolution meeting, and then we would be back for like kind of an official 25% design public hearing. That would be a big public meeting that's led by MassDOT. But it would be, here in town, and that's tentatively potentially happen in the summer. And then we kind of continue on with the design process. There's 75% design, 100%. And what's called PS&E, which is just plan, specs, and estimate. That's just kind of the final submittal. So there's a lot of back and forth with comments. There's still, obviously we're still at very early stages, so there's still a lot of, time for comments and discussion. And right now, I believe it's on the draft transportation improvement program for 2028 for construction funding. And I think that was the last slide.
So 2028, meaning that's the start
Advertise,
or
yeah.
the finish?
Start. Unless that can change, if other projects kind of fall off on the transportation improvement program through NIMCOG, and if there's a space and it can move up and it's ready, that's always potential, but,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, thank you for that. There's some updates to what we saw as the plan and with all the vetting and communication with Mass DOT and, shall I say, requirements. So we're at a point where, that's close to being what it would look like, but to try and talk through and ask any questions here about what we've seen, because I have a few, but
Yeah.
I'd rather open it up to everybody else, because I did take notes. I don't know if anybody else on Zoom World wants to start, or if anybody else here has a question, would ask you to just step up to a mic if you are in this room, but let's start with anybody on Zoom. Brian, I see you're on camera, so did you have a question to kick this off, Brian?
Lucky me. No, and thanks, Bridget. And I'm sorry I didn't get your colleague's name, but thank you very much. A lot of work goes into this stuff.
Angela.
It looks really, really good. So it's heartening to see it come to life, right? It's been years in the making, and this thing's real now, which is great. I'm not going to bore you with ticky-tack thoughts here. Overall, I'm pleased to see a crosswalk get added up at the antique store, between the bank and the antique store. That was a nice add. Overall, it looks promising. I mean, there's nothing really, I'm sure you did everything you could to squeeze extra parking in there, and 10 spots is 10 spots. It's a tough loss, but I don't know. Safety improvements may outweigh those 10 spots. So no major comments. I guess a question would be, how would you like to receive comments from us? Or I don't want you getting comments from individual folks. So maybe we should go through the chair to the town, and maybe Christine or somebody else can compile. Or I'll even volunteer to compile from the committee, just to save some work. But
Okay.
yeah, that's all I got.
No, all right. I appreciate everybody coming here in the room. Does anybody have immediate questions you want to ask? Could you come up to a microphone so we can make sure it's heard? Thank you. Just say who you are and
My
where
name's
you live.
Leo Forcier. I manage a condo project. It's 8 units right at Groton Road in Dunstable. And a few years back, when they rehabbed that intersection, there was concern about parking and taking area of our yard, our property. There isn't a lot, but they were looking to take that. I negotiated with them and talked to them regarding it, because we needed a parking. We had parking there. They were going to take it away. So what we did is, I went through a lot of effort pouring concrete walls so they could have more room to work that intersection. We could have parking along that street. So we got probably 10 spots of parking, or 8 condos right there. Your concept is going to wipe out all the parking on both sides. We'll have no parking rather than 10 spots right next to the building. I'm not happy with it. I don't like that And I don't think it's right that we should lose all our parking to put a sidewalk there or to change things or what have you. We need parking there. We got 8 units, 10 parking spots, and those are gonna disappear if we go with this. So I don't like it.
What's the address for the?
It's 1-13 Groton Road and 14 Dunstable. So it's the building that's right in the intersection
Yeah.
of Dunstable and,
And those are the spots that have numbered?
yes.
Yeah, those are staying.
But you're saying you're putting parking on the other side, you're putting parking, you're putting driveway, you're parking, your 2 ways, traffic, bike path, sidewalks on both sides. I don't know how you could get all that in between the hardware store and our building.
So,
And on the opposite side, I don't think you can get that either.
Joe, can you?
yeah, can you pull up the,
Oh, yeah, sure.
The section, that section on
the,
the Dunstable Road.
yeah, keep going.
I think
The plan view.
would be better.
One more, that one. So,
The building is this one
Right.
right here.
Yeah.
And the parking is
Yeah.
along here
these
and
are all,
along here.
these are all parking spaces, and these are parking spaces.
Are you,
We
are
are
you
losing
taking
parking
part
on
of this
side.
land on this side?
On this side?
Yeah.
No, we're not taking any land on there, but we do lose the parking on this side. But we were able to get additional spaces than what's there today on this side.
Okay. How can you have spaces here?
It,
So
this,
it's a
this
drawing.
one, this, image had those kind of incorrect, they do end right there.
They
We
end there.
have, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 there, and then I think we were able to put one more here. So yeah, these two, just incorrectly shown right there, but, you can end up with, I think, 9 spaces on that side of the road, and then we have the 5 over here. So it does build out like the sidewalk along the building, but we were able to keep those spaces. Because that was the one I was mentioning, that we did notice that
Because
those were deeded.
this is where we put the curving in,
Mhm.
to allow the town to rework this intersection, widen it, and straighten it out and what have you, so. But you're saying you get that parking, you
Yep.
can get parking in there. I didn't think the width of it, you could fit parking and 2 walks and a bike path and,
We don't fit any bikes over here, but yeah, we do get the sidewalks.
so you can have 2 sidewalks here, a
Mhm.
bike path.
Yeah, it's more of a
And
path on this
parking.
side, parking on this side.
Where is the sidewalk?
It's this kind of like light gray.
Is here?
Yeah,
Okay.
this kind of shaded area.
Okay, if you can get it in there,
Bridget, while you're up there right now, can you just show the area where within the intersection, you said that there, in the actual
Yeah.
signal, there's no parking on either side?
Yeah, right here. So I know right now there's a few spots right here and
Right.
right here.
What about down in front of Rosie's place, right, right there, yeah? Is there parking there?
Yeah, parking there.
Okay,
Yeah, still parking there, because that's outside of the.
so right now,
stop
there's
line.
parking on this side, there'd be no parking on this side, it'd be on this side.
Yeah.
And it would be public parking, I assume.
I mean, I don't, that's where because I noticed those were,
So rather than our individual parking, it's
Well,
gonna
we
be
may
public
be-
parking for the businesses or what have you.
if those are deeded to the property like we saw, then they may still be able to be marked. That's something I got talk, I think Christine was trying to talk to town council about that. I found the deed and it did have blurb in there about the parking. I don't know how that works on a public road, but, so,
Okay.
Yeah, Bridget, we are reviewing this with town council.
okay.
You got any comments, Dan? Dan owns 2 units.
You gotta get to the mic.
Yeah.
Come to the
Come-
microphone.
Please come to the mic.
People on the call can't hear you.
Dan Forcier, architect and owner of 2 of the units in that same building. I guess I would need to see kind of a close-up plan of what you want to do around that property. Like if you're, like he's saying, on the opposite side of Groton Road, there's already a sidewalk and there's public parking. On the other side is I own unit 1 and 5, so I own 3 of those spots. So if somehow those don't belong to the building, or I don't even see how you'd be able to put a sidewalk over there, because it's kind of, the way that we did it, like he's talking about 20 years ago, when we had to lower our building and create space in order to get those spots. So I would need, like, if you're gonna put a sidewalk, I would like to see an actual plan of
Yeah.
how that comes together. Aside from that, and that, like, I don't even know if that will work, that bump out that you have where the hardware store is. The Dunstable Road traffic, the people that live in the area know better than to drive to that intersection. There's ways around it. So the people that get stuck there are people who don't know the area. So is there gonna be a light? You have three crosswalks and then the X in front of Adam Street. Is there gonna be another light there? Is that what?
Yeah, so there'll be a light facing Dunstable.
So would it be similar to the Watton Street? So if that one turns green, all the other ones are red and the people come out of Watton Street? So if that one turns, like, I guess if the Dunstable Road turns green, the whole rest of the intersection goes red and lets those cars out?
I'd have to let Angela go to the actual signal phasing.
So Dunstable would turn green, but the 2 Groton Road approaches would both be red at the same time at that specific intersection. And then at the main intersection, I believe when Dunstable's also going, Route 3A has the southbound vehicles are able to go.
So if the Dunstable Road turns green, are they gonna get stuck between the X and then that green, like in front of Adam Street? Or are they free to go through the whole intersection? Like, I don't see how that actually works. Some people do get confused where the stop sign is at Groton. Some people drive all the way to the intersection as well. I literally watch that intersection all day, every day. That's where my house is. And I always get confused to why, like, basically, if you live on Dunstable Road, you know better than to go there. And I guess my only other concern with the intersection is the other side, where you have that clock area. So the way that intersection works is that people that are going to the right just kind of breeze through, and then the people that are gonna take a left to go onto Groton Road, so you almost kind of form 2 lanes, the people that go to the right, and the people that wanna take a left onto Groton Road are the ones that get stuck. Waiting for the other oncoming traffic. So I don't understand how they're gonna. So the people that want to go left onto Groton Road and the people that want to go right down 3A are gonna be stuck behind each other? That's almost gonna cause twice as much traffic.
There's
a left turn lane.
It's the same setup.
But is it the left-hand lane to go back around that, the common area? Like the left that nobody should take?
That left lane is there now.
The one that nobody should use if they know what they're doing? Like,
No, I'm talking about the approach before Watton. That left lane is there now. That will continue on to go up to Groton. If they have to go down Dunstable, they'll go from there, but that's the left I thought you were talking.
no, coming down to Middlesex before you get into that light. It's gonna get all back.
Yeah, go.
So right now, this kind of forms two
Oh.
lanes. These people veer off and go straight to the intersection. And
Right.
the ones that want to go left on the Groton Road kind of get stuck and wait for these people and scissor their way through. So now they're gonna come to a stop, the people who want to go straight through and the
Exactly.
people who want, so now there's gonna be double traffic backed up here.
They're trying to slow it down coming
Well,
into that
that's to slow it
intersection. That's
down
the
because
issue.
of the dangerous nature of the intersection.
That's the nature of that.
They'll have to slow down.
Well, it's not so much slow down, the traffic's gonna be backed up to the
Yeah, but
train
that,
tracks.
but now that intersection right there is signalized too, right there. Is that correct, Bridget?
No.
Is that not gonna be
It's
That's
not
signalized?
been
gonna be
knocked out. That was in the plan, Mike.
So now those people are gonna get double stuck.
So they stop and then they can take a right as go.
Right.
So that's a good point, though. How was
Okay.
that discussed in the meetings, deciding to get rid of that light and to manage that?
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So Bridget touched on it a little bit earlier, but basically that intersection came down to a cost versus safety, and which one weighed heavier for the intersection. So because there isn't a specific safety concern at the intersection today, the cost of a signal outweighed the safety improvements that it would provide. So it's something that can still definitely be evaluated in the future, but at this point, MassDOT doesn't see the benefit of having a signal at this location.
Is there any review of that or appeal of that prior to the continuing of the design that the town can look at? Or no? Oh, I'm sorry.
We can ask. We haven't,
that was
like,
part of
appealed
the-
one of these ICE decisions before, but
Yeah, that was all
it's-
part of the ICE process that
was-
we went through. Yeah, where we evaluated for this intersection, a roundabout, a signal, and then the two-way stop control. And the two-way stop control came out as the preferable option. So, but yeah, we've never appealed one before. I'm not positive how that process would work, but
I just didn't know if there was another chance to review it or the design's continuing on without that now.
as of now, yes.
Okay.
I mean, we can also provide more, I mean, we don't have, the detailed traffic operations with us tonight because we're just
Right.
doing more of an overview, but we can definitely provide that information too as part of the analysis. And what it's showing us as far as the operations and the
Right.
comparison.
That actually is something that I've gone through my mind as well, how they approach, but, I mean, because I think it's necessary to slow down that traffic because to stay tight to the common. However, I mean, they eventually have to get through there, so, but then to manage it, to me, it may need that light. And it makes me also think they want to wage the cost of the traffic light versus the need when they don't hesitate to want to put bike lanes everywhere in the square when we barely see bikes go through there now. So, I mean, that's why I'm sure everybody's thinking the bike lanes versus the parking, and, because we want this to work. That's why I'm glad you came here with the idea of rethinking Wright Road to be able to put more spots. It's not as close to,
Right.
but it's not that bad of a walk, and everybody wants to get their steps in. But if it's a safer place to be, a safer place to walk, that's not as big of an issue, I think, to be able to park over there. So I'm glad you had that idea to offset the parking and give another option to do so. So Christine, I know we've kind of talked about as we get closer, what's the best way to field questions, manage the communications amongst the project, but then also leading up to, when it actually starts breaking ground. But right now, I think it's a question to talk to you folks about how to make sure that anybody that has a question, when we post this video with all the information, with the plan, where we're at now, how can they best reach out to answer any questions to, get them addressed with the project?
I think, and then we can coordinate that with Christine. I think in the past, it's kind of gone through DBW and then
Okay.
sent to us.
Joe, if people want to email you questions and then you can field them to me, Would that be the easiest? I know Brian Creamer had some. He was going to send them to me directly, but I can then have that list of questions from you if people email you directly. That, or they could also, I mean, I'm just trying to think, because you could also send it to my email address. I'm just trying to find a way we can get them all compiled. Everyone here in the group has your email address. Do you think that would be okay, or?
If you ask me, yes. If you ask my wife, absolutely not.
Okay.
So,
Well, the other option is to you can email me at DPW.
well, yeah, I'm just thinking
So
the long term, yeah.
Clancy at chelmsfordma.gov.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again, Christine?
C Clancy, so CCLANCY at chelmsfordma.gov.
Okay,
And
great.
I guess please just put something in the title that says Vinyl Square input, or just so I can see the heading.
Great, thank you. The other thing, just,
And then we'll compile those, and then we could also regroup with some responses on some of these questions in the near future.
perfect. And I know Paul's team is working to update the website. And on our committee's website, if eventually as this process grows, we can direct them there and maybe have a landing site for Q&A or way to compile that and broadcast it. So we have a place to steer everyone. Okay? Anybody else have any other questions? Yeah. Please, just so you're in front of the mic so everybody can hear you.
Yep.
I'm sure you have a great question.
No, not that great. So I'm probably one of the 1% of people who comes here on bike. My name is Josh Warhurst. I'm 232 Princeton Street. And Vinyl Square is one of those places where I'll like, how do I want to get through this intersection? If I'm coming down like Middlesex and going down Groton Road towards like the senior center, like maybe I'll stay on the sidewalk. Maybe I'll, it does feel like a very dangerous intersection, especially with Tingsboro Road. People coming up fast from that road, people, waiting out in the middle of that intersection to take a left turn doesn't feel safe. So I definitely appreciate having like a turn signal there that would give people priority. So I think that area where there's the bump out, I think that's I like that idea a lot. I think the the clock project or potential other things might make it so that people actually feel like they want to spend time in Vinyl Square. I think when I'm on the sidewalk in Vinyl Square, I often feel like I'm standing next to a highway sometimes. It doesn't feel like, I want to stay here and enjoy the view, right? Or even sitting in like Rosie's Diner, you get these cars that are slamming into the front of it, right? Sometimes. So, yeah, I think this feels really nice. The only thing, my only comment, is there anything to kind of slow the traffic coming from Tingsboro Road to make it at least more obvious that they're entering into a place where people might be? I feel like right now, usually when I'm on that road, cars fly up and they kind of fly into that intersection. I'm not sure that's necessarily the cause of any crashes, but as somebody who's in Vinyl Square, that's something I feel sometimes when cars go flying by. So
Yeah, that's something it's good feedback to think about. I know that, we do have curve coming up there. So I'm sure that has something to do with it. There will be new signals, and hopefully they kind of are more visible as well. And, they can now look nicer. Like they can be like the black, like kind of decorative signal posts. So it's not as much of that like highway type signal look right now. It's a span wire. Is that right now? Yeah. So you'd have the mast arm. So that could, be that visual cue for people. And even as they're approaching the intersection, the updated cross-section, it'll be new, right? So, it's something that people will be coming into, and there'll be the sidewalk there. I don't think there's much on the southbound side right now. So And those things, like the presence of pedestrians and bikes, kind of have that natural way of slowing traffic. But, I mean, aside from that, there's not much like a traffic calming thing we can really do from coming from the north. But it's definitely something we can think about more.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
I actually had a question when we were at the slide. Is that, without me writing out and adding up all the feet, it doesn't look like with everything that needs to be considered with building this, that there's enough actual width on, like, for instance, Tingsboro Road, to stay on Tingsboro Road. I mean, has that all been cross-referenced, or is there any talks about trying to reform or take anything? Like, I don't think so, but
I mean,
it just looks like a lot of width.
I mean, that cross-section you're looking at is in one more specific area where there's still the parking. As you go further north, you know, the parking, you lose the parking, and things do narrow back in.
Yes.
So this isn't gonna carry too far north.
Okay.
So this is more just in that kind of area where the on-street parking starts now. You'd have a cross-section like this. And I mean, we did, I mean, it's based on the survey, so it is the actual size out there. You do have a like on the right side there, that sidewalk does vary in width. But yeah, no, there actually is the room. The travel lanes are probably maybe a little wider right now, so those might be coming a little narrower. It's that 11-foot width, but no, that is based on the survey.
Okay, and now there is also, and without bouncing around with all the slides, one of the slides showed a shared
Shared use path.
shared use
Yeah.
path where it had the pedestrians and the bikes, and that separated long enough. Has there been a thought process or negotiation with this plan to consider that versus curbing and multiple curbing where maybe it's more combined? Because when I see 5 feet, there's some areas where it's not even 5. It doesn't seem 5 feet, maybe it is wide, but I didn't know if there was a way to combine it versus separate it that would save space and
So on,
more frugal with the area.
I mean, on kind of the middle of the square area, there is a lot of room, like building to building. We were able to fit it in without much constraint. As you do go further south, that's where you kind of lose some of that width. The thing is, we can't, if you've already got like the bike lanes on 3A, it's hard to just kind of convert to like a path on one side of the road, because then they have to cross. I mean, we do kind of, that's why we only have the paths on we have it on Middlesex, we have Groton, so those are on the side street. So, you know, if like you're coming up Middlesex Street on bike and you're heading north, you stay on the same side of the road, but you know, someone coming from Groton and heading south, they would have to cross to go over to Middlesex. But so just trying to eliminate how many times like someone on a bike would have to cross. So you can't really go like back and forth on the same road between like bike lanes and shared use paths. So that was one of the main reasons. And the other big one is that you just have a lot more storefronts on 3A. And when you have that situation, I mean, it's more ideal to have them separated, because you want to have the kind of pedestrians going in and out of shops and kind of avoid having someone on a bike, you know, right up against a shop. So usually in those kind of commercial downtown areas, it's preferable to do the separated facility.
How do they deal with winter snow removal? So a major snowstorm comes and they clear the lane. Is the bike lane just sort of sacrificed in the winter with the snow, or is it expected that the town or somebody comes in and clears the bike lane as well as the sidewalk? And then, like I said, where does the snow go?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we'll have to discuss with DPW as far as,
Right now, they plow it all right in front of my property. And then when it gets too high, a big truck comes and they
Okay.
remove it with.
I'm just curious.
that, I mean, no, that is always a struggle.
Florida, but
The whole thing gets plowed to my front door.
There's, you know, typically not as much bike activity in the winter. You know, ideally, everything gets plowed, but I understand there's only so many places you can put snow. So, but that's something that, we'd have to discuss with DPW. If it's right at sidewalk level, kind of like what you're seeing on the left side of the screen there, then it's kind of all the same level, and it would assumed it would be plowed just like the sidewalk would be plowed.
That's a good question, Paul, because
No,
I mean, we
it
wrestle
always comes
with,
up around here.
the
Yep.
snow removal
Yeah.
at certain times anywhere in the square, but to add different types of bike lanes
Mm-hmm.
and different levels is something else for, DPW
Yeah,
to have to
no.
negotiate when they do get down there.
Yeah, that's
you know?
true. Yep.
Because we don't want to create more work
Right.
and repair. Okay. Please.
My name is Gary. I live in North Chelmsford. I think I've been there since I was 10 years old. That would be about 58 years. I've seen this vinyl square for 58 years. I know, I see the situation that's going on here, and I think it's all about traffic and safety and parking, and I kind of get that. But can I, before I continue, is anything I say tonight going to make a difference, or is this is a done deal, pretty much?
No, we're at the beginning of a
Okay.
of
Can I-
a
can I
design.
address the map for a second?
Sure.
There's just one thing that,
Which part?
like, for example, here on Adams Street, well, this building here was in my family for 50 years. This one.
Okay.
So I'm very familiar with the liquor store. He got a variance for 3 units above that liquor store, and that variance was based on parking here. And I think that parking is gonna be taken away now. Again, I do understand the problem with plans like this, parking and traffic. And I wonder where those people are gonna park now. It's unfortunate, it's unfortunate that somewhere down the road, nobody bought up any land like here or anywhere, so people could actually really park. He's gonna lose his parking, I don't care what he thinks, that's okay. And so parking's an issue. I think that's something you have to take into consideration. This little thing right here, it's not just about everybody that comes in a vinyl square because it's the 2 bridges, Kingsborough and the one down by the yellow one. Too bad there wasn't one in the middle, because everybody crosses those bridges and they all end up here, all in here. In order to get, when the traffic's coming, you gotta get the traffic out to get the new traffic in. And this here's gonna stop that a little bit, because these people, there's been some accidents here, I don't know if there's been a lot, there's been a few. But that's because they're trying to get through and the people up here trying to get through, it's just a pain. But you're gonna make someone stop right here to make that right turn, they have to come in here and come to a stop. That's gonna back all this up eventually, because you gotta come to a stop to make a right turn. Right now, they just go whoom, whoom, which is getting the people out. Can you just go to the other side, the other intersection? And this is the biggest problem I see right here, that thing. If anybody ever stood, and I ride my bike too, by the way, I love my bike. I don't ride it in the winter. And I usually plan my routes, I know. And all this traffic's going all the way down here. That's gonna really stop it. I'm just giving you a heads up. I don't care what engineer said what. I know what's gonna happen here. If there's no light here, it's gonna be, nobody's gonna let them out. They're just gonna keep coming and coming and coming and coming and coming. And they're gonna stop and they're gonna be all backed up and this light's gonna turn green and nobody's going anywhere, because they can't. And that's gonna, has anybody stood out there from 4 to 6 o'clock? I'm just curious.
I have.
You know what I'm talking about, right? And you gotta get them in, you gotta get them out. It's too bad we couldn't have just one lane. I know the clock's going there, I get it. I mean, I think the clock would be better here or right here at the hardware store, right in the front there, but probably not the hardware store, because we don't want too much attention to the hardware store, but maybe, that's right, I said it. Up here, I love Louise, don't get me wrong. And, but it's too bad we just couldn't have one lane, just to get the flow out, to not block this so much. And as far as, the parking over here, this is all Rosie's parking in here. Does anybody know who owns that? It's not us. Eventually, and I've already got word, so eventually that's gonna be sold. Where's everybody gonna park? We need to think about that. A lot of this plan is good, I get it. Some of it isn't so good. We gotta make that go faster. Somebody's gotta invest in some parking. I know it's gonna cost this town a lot of money, and we need to clean up the lake.
But we own the parking on the other side of the street, you know, yeah.
While we have this map up, can we talk more about making Adams a two-way? Because to the parking, I don't understand how that could be feasible, but talk to us more about the thought process of turning Adams into a two-way,
Do you wanna?
if you could.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so Adams Street is proposed to be right in, right out, and the idea is that it would eliminate people taking the left into Adams, potentially creating, the safety concern of having the lefts taking that turn in, having people back up behind those left turning vehicles, and instead they would go down to Newfield. They would turn in there, and then because Adams Street is a two-way, you'd be able to go up that way as needed instead of taking the left into Adams now. So that's kind of how it would operate functionally. As far as parking, I believe you would have to be limited within a certain amount of feet to the intersection, but I think it could operate two-way, having just the narrower width, as you see a lot of streets in Boston, how they have parking on both sides, and you would just take turns who goes. But so at the specific Adams Street intersection, I think we would limit parking, but farther down, we would still be able to have them. Bridget, if you feel differently, I don't know how much we've explored that.
Yeah, no, I generally agree with that. I mean, it was really driven by trying to get rid of that left turn into Adams Street. With Dunstable being brought into the intersection, you have this big area with, we're very worried about having a car sitting there waiting, trying to take a left in and blocking out.
Have you looked at preserving the parking for the people who live in that building, as was pointed out? And just precluding a left turn onto Adams Street? I think the point that was made about you're taking away parking who actually live right there is a big concern.
Right.
Yeah, we can look into that. We did.
No, I don't know how they're gonna get. They'd either, well, it's one way the wrong way to come up a different way to get into that.
Right, and you just
couldn't
finally addressed the point of clarification that I didn't realize when you say right in, right out, zip in, zip out. So you mean literally coming down Groton, you can only take a right into Adams. It precludes the left coming the other way. So
Right.
you,
Yep.
so right, you can only take a right in.
Right.
And you can only take a
right
right out.
Yep.
But
Okay.
so
But
so
there's still
either
the issue
way.
with the parking and the spacing, so
Well,
I don't-
even with right in, right out, or no left turn on Adams, you have this issue now where how do the people who live there get to their parking spots? Because right now, if they're turning left to get there, and you take that left turn away,
Right. Then.
whether you just take it away and leave the parking there, or whether you make it right in, right out, the only way they can get to parking for their home is to somehow get back up north and come down and turn right.
Right.
So,
Unless-
I think that's a real.
The only other thing I can think
logistical-
of is what I've seen in like some smaller roads like this is, I know they have the do not enter signs on the other end. If it was do not enter except for residents, I know, there's issue with enforcing on that, but that is, another way around that.
We're probably not going to solve it tonight, but I think
Right.
that's a really good point that was made that really needs a closer look. And I guess I just have a question on process too. Is there going to be like an iteration considering the comments you've received tonight and then another opportunity for public input?
Yeah, so there'd be another, there's definitely at least one other public meeting, the 25% design public hearing, that's kind of the official MassDOT one. We can certainly come here again, anytime. But yeah, there's still, we're at 25%, so that's still early in the process to take into comments and to be able to incorporate them. It's once we start getting past like 75%, that's when things are pretty usually set, and that you're just kind of making revisions at that point. But we're not there yet.
Thank you.
I think what we need to preserve as much parking as we can on that, so I think that precludes making that two-way. That's my gut on that. I think that's what we're looking at. I really don't know how we can afford to give up any more parking,
Mm-hmm.
really, I just don't. Yeah, that's why I like the fact that you came up with an idea of making right,
Mm-hmm.
a right way, one way, excuse me, and adding parking there, you
Yep.
know?
My only other question with that would be, what if you made it one way, the opposite way that it is now, so that at least the people who live there, whether they're coming from the south or the north or the east or the west, whatever you call it, can take a couple of back roads in to get to their parking spots?
Right. Did we? Oh, we had looked at that. But that might have been before we had Adam Street included in the signal, so that,
Yeah, right.
but now we do have
It's
it,
just
so.
it's just a
that might-
thought, I
that
mean,
might-
Bridget,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the smart people to go look at it.
I think we did have some opposition from fire because there wasn't
Okay.
frequent location visited on Adam Street, and so they did say that would increase their response time, having to go through the neighborhood.
Okay.
I didn't know if that would cause a concern going another nose into that busy parking lot for signaling or anything else, but I don't know. Like Virginia said, that's why we defer to you folks for making it make sense, but I would question that, like, whatever you can do to keep
Yep.
replacing, limiting the bike lanes, or replacing, or moving spaces versus removing spaces, Steve?
Steve, I live off of Dunstable Road, so I avoid,
Excuse me, folks, can you,
Steve, I live off of Dunstable Road, and I avoid Vinyl Square whenever possible. I also ride my bike a lot, and I can honestly say I've never driven anywhere near Vinyl Square. I'll do all the side streets, get my way around. I don't like to cross 3A, either on foot or on my bike. This weekend on Saturday, going to the tree lighting, I witnessed someone going out Adams on it, taking a right. So that's one way going the other way. So that was a problem. But bigger problem was the fire engine coming the other way who had to veer out of their way. So there's kind of a blind corner also. You can't see if emergency vehicles are coming through there. So I'd almost say, block off Adams just past where those local businesses are, like, 200 feet up the street, and just have people go to the medical building from the neighborhood and just not have that as a active intersection. Well, that's pretty drastic. Also, truck traffic is brutal. I'm not sure the last time anyone checked on what trucks are doing lately, but I would say it's doubled in the last year. And I don't think I'm being exaggerating that at all. What would happen in these intersections if you have three 22-wheel dump trucks in a row entering one of those intersections? Like, I saw it this summer, and they're all sitting there blocking up Dunstable, blocking up Middlesex Street, and one gets out, and then all the other cars are waiting behind them, and then the second one gets out, and it's happening over and over again. There's a huge amount of triaxles going down Dunstable from Vinyl Square, both directions. Huge number of triaxles. They're all going to the gravel pit. I'm not riding my bike on Groton Road much anymore either. There's a lot of gravel on Groton Road, whether it's at Swain. If you go to the on-off ramps of Route 3, there's gravel all over the sides of the road. Going on to Route 3, there's gravel. So I wouldn't want to use a bike lane with these trucks. So it's a big problem. But I think they're great improvements to make the area look nicer, but not with this kind of traffic.
How are the trucks blocking? You mentioned they were blocking, Middlesex blocking Dunstable.
So if they're coming down Groton Road from Route 3, now you got cars trying to come out of Dunstable, and then you've got three tractor trailers waiting to get through that light. And I'm not sure how that light is. It seems forever. 2 minutes? it seems like a real long light. And you're just gonna get one truck, maybe two trucks out, and then
Okay, that's
cars are gonna try to get in and out of there, but it's just not very conducive.
I think most of the trucks are associated with Boston Concrete.
Oh, I was gonna mention a name, but yeah, they're beautiful trucks. They're just not really
But
conducive, and I think they're
they're
subcontracting.
bringing gravel and concrete back and forth and what have you all day.
S&R Contracting is the other one that's coming through now. They might be contracting with them because I'm seeing a lot, awful lot, so.
That's good to know.
No, I don't know if you can do another
Right.
study on that, but that would also justify that second light because those trucks go down Middlesex and then they come back up Middlesex and go up Rotten Road. They just do that all day long, back and
That's
forth.
the move. Okay. Yep.
So, that's all. I appreciate what you're doing, and I think it's gonna be beautiful when it's done, but just really concerned the impact the area is having right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, just in seeing the trucks go through there, I mean, obviously that would slow them down going down Middlesex, coming off the intersection too, so.
Yep.
We hope to, not see them come through, but.
Right.
I think it would be tough that they wouldn't even want to. I don't know where else to go, but. Anybody else have any questions? Karen?
Hi, Karen Beretta. I live over on Prescott Drive. If I'm understanding correctly, there's some homes that we're looking to potentially remove parking spots for. If that were to happen, doesn't that devalue their property?
Which homes?
Well, this road we're talking about, the side road that you're talking about, I think it's.
On Adams Street?
Adams. If you remove parking spots and there's homes that people use to park, doesn't that instantly devalue your home value? If I had to drive around to get down, like we're saying you can only take a right or a right, but you could come up some other way to loop around to come down to be on the right side of the road to be in your parking spot. To make me have to go out of my way to do that, if I go to sell my home and I have to explain that to a home buyer, that you can get to the you can get to the house, but you have to go this side road and loopity-loop over here. It devalues the home value. When you're so close to a center that you can't really get to, you can whip a rock to your home, but you can't get there, is kind of how I see it.
I mean, I'm not a home value.
I just bring it up
expert, so I
because I come from Brookline, New Hampshire, and we had someone who was trying to do something in our town and turn a cemetery into a huge roundabout. And it's like, well, if you're on this end of the roundabout, you're now going a half a mile around a roundabout because it was a huge cemetery to get to your home. Why am I having to go half a mile around this roundabout when my home is right here? So we determined that devalued the home. So I was just curious if any thought was given to any of that.
I mean, we're just looking at the transportation. So I don't know the answer to that question about
Okay.
home value
I was just
with the
curious.
parking, if it's like on-street kind of public parking.
All right, thanks, that was all.
Okay.
Thank you.
May I just add one more thing?
Yes.
She said it's somewhat true, actually. But, if I were to live there, I wouldn't go through Vinyl Square to get home. I'd go around.
Right.
But what is the value? If you live anywhere around Vinyl Square, I don't live in Vinyl Square, I live on Willis Drive, but I don't go through the square, I actually go through Newfield Street to go around because the traffic is so bad. And if you live on Shaw Street, I'm sure most of those people do the same thing. Nobody in their right mind would want to go through Vinyl Square if they didn't want to or didn't have to. Thanks.
So speaking to that, because let's snap our fingers, this is all done, it's the best traffic lights, whether there's 1, 2, 3, or 4. Part of the improvement is to improve the actual functioning light and moving cars, correct? Because we've had some terrible backups and miscommunications or shutdowns and fuses blown and whatnot, but those lights don't operate well, so it's to upgrade the movement of flow of traffic as well, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right,
One quick
Sure.
question.
sure. Speaking on behalf of the biking community.
Sorry.
We haven't
other
had
things
one,
too.
we haven't had anybody prove that they ride a bike through there, so we appreciate you coming.
It's yeah, I might not have come. I actually had to take my car here because nobody likes to go through that thing on free on a bike. But everybody knows what I'm saying. On Watton
Hill.
Street, so there's parking there, right? It's town-owned parking. Is that true, or is that not? Is that business?
Which one?
The lot.
Watton Street
Behind Tequila.
Behind that.
behind Tequila's. Is that like public parking or not? Do you know?
Think
Behind
so.
Tequila's, no.
No, that's for the businesses.
That's all.
on
That's
that-
all.
On the other side,
Section of,
Yeah, we're on the other side of,
on the other side of Wadden,
yeah.
up behind
Yeah,
those homes,
yeah.
up behind the house though.
Yeah, I was thinking with this side, like if we go to Tequila's, we park.
No, that's
No,
private.
that's
for the
private.
business, the building
Right,
up
for
front. Right.
like for Tequila's, it's fine, but if
Right.
you were trying to go to like Rosie's, it's off limits, right?
Right.
Yeah.
right.
Um,
Across from Rosie's, that's the municipal parking lot, across from Rosie's.
Across the street
Across
there.
the street.
Up,
so,
go up to your left.
Oh.
Right there.
Right there,
Right there.
okay.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
public.
that's public.
And there's some businesses here, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
But like the karate dojo and.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so this anybody can park.
Mhm.
Do we find that that's often filled to capacity, or is it like? I'm just wondering if yeah, we're losing
Pretty
10
well used,
spots,
yeah.
but
Yeah, those businesses use that.
Yeah.
The more public parking lot is the one in the Rosie's parking lot. That's where people that come in park. The only people that park in the municipal one are the ones that use the dojo and those businesses right there.
yeah.
And that's what technically is municipal, the one Roses is
back.
not, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just haven't. I've never seen. I don't live at Vinyl Square, right? I live on Princeton, so I never see those parking lots full. But if they're full, then I'm gonna.
Part of in looking at this whole concept of being able to improve the square is also, there's certain times of day where you come out, you cannot take a left out of that municipal parking lot. So
Yeah.
we've even talked about, can we get an easement behind there to get a one-way onto Watton and the like, to try to then make it more feasible to want to use that municipal parking lot. And we hope that a lot of these improvements will slow traffic down. Maybe then people will be a little bit more calm, let somebody out, It's all part of the process, but the feedback is really good, and that's, but yeah, the question is, that's why I appreciate you realizing that parking is the issue to come with the right street, because any other parking space that we can add or to not sacrifice is what we'd like to see. Okay. Any other questions from the Zoom world out there, or any comments or anything else to wrap up? Because I think we've had a good hour and a half here. I think we've covered a lot.
Sorry, one super quick question.
Yeah, you
One-
bikers.
These are Dunstable and Adams are problematic intersections, right? Like, I'm not suggesting that we cut off those streets or you just convert that into a parking lot, right? But do we need these connections? I don't know. I'm throwing that out there as.
You mean the walkways?
No,
just having them.
The other side.
Need the roads to be.
Double the traffic on Marino
Oh.
Street, the side.
It would
more
come up.
housing
Yeah.
streets,
It'll
which
just
is
push.
what the people normally use anyway. Anyone that gets stuck on Dunstable Road doesn't live in Georgetown.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Somebody mentioned, just like Steve had said, at one of the other meetings over the last couple of years about Adams and making it a dead end up to the intersection. Now, I'm not here to say that's what we're doing. I'm just saying to try to slow things down and try to make sure it wasn't a pass-through and a cut-through and all that, where people could get up there for the doctor's office or the houses, but yet you just then are not going to try to venture into the square, and then that would be maybe safer for those people on that section of Adams Street. I mean, I don't know if anything like that has been discussed on your end, but it was one of these public input sessions that somebody else talked about. But like I said, anything to not, take away any more parking,
Right.
but to keep it safe and make sure things, once all is said and done, it's a nice way to navigate and even get more people on foot. I mean, I think I think it would be more inclined to see people walking around the square into the other areas, the green space, into businesses to be able to cross, then we'll see bikers when all this is said and done. I think we're gonna see more people on foot. But anyway, that's what I'd like to see. So again, in closing, I want to thank everybody here at Zoom through the great world of technology. Now that we got the original hiccup squared away. Again, this is going to be recorded. We will also add ways to land questions and eventually get that on the town website, on this committee's page, and we'll have ways to direct through and keep the line of communications going. Again, my name's Joe Tierney. My email is joseph.tierney, Tierney, number 4 @gmail.com. In case anybody does want to send me an email, I'm not the end-all be-all in this project, but if you're looking to get more involved with Vinyl Square, or any of the events, any of the projects, or anything else you'd like to see in North Chelmsford, and anything in the purview of this community, please feel free to reach out. And the only last order of business is I'd like to open it up for any other discussions, but we've had that, is the approval of our April minutes.
Can I ask
Oh,
one
sure.
more thing before you?
Sure, of course.
So if the committee or if the town wanted to come back and just allow a little more public feedback after you do another iteration, if there is going to be another iteration, what would that timing look like? Would it be like sometime early next year, or?
It would. Yeah, I mean, it could be sometime early next year. if
First
we
half
wanted
of the
to do
year?
Something like that, because we'd probably want to get our 25% design together, which would, looking to incorporate some of the feedback. that
Right,
we've
that's what
gotten. So it could be then.
Okay.
Because there is one planned for the summer, correct?
And I mean, that was a rough date.
Well, is the summer with Mass DOT?
Yes.
Right.
Right, so I'm just saying, would you want to have another informal feedback before you go to Mass DOT, given the comments you received tonight?
I mean, we're trying to submit it early in the year. But that's not to say that we can't still take comments after that,
Okay.
because we're still at 25% design.
Right, all I'm saying is you don't want to get it too far along and then find out that people are going to stand up and oppose it because of
It's
whatever.
not a playground, so I don't know.
I'll leave that to you and the committee to
No, that's
decide,
fine.
but I would consider that, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, my fear is that we were shooting for the summer for this one, and then it's now the end of the year, but yeah, I agree. I think Virginia's point is the way to actively stay engaged with the community on any of the progress.
When you go to Mass DOT, you want their support, not their objection.
Right, of course.
So all I'm saying is it might be worth considering having another informal session to say, we heard you, this is what we can or cannot do,
Right,
and have.
yeah.
So.
I agree. All right, so maybe we can do late spring or something like that. And all right, awesome. Thank you. That's a good idea.
Is there a way to get these drawings?
I mean, we can
Yeah,
make this
if you-
presentation, I mean,
Yeah, you can
I think I sent
email
a
me
PDF,
and then I'll
or-
send it out to you if you want. That's no problem.
You can also attach it to the minutes when you post to the minutes.
Okay. And yeah, we will add it to the town website, but if you want it sooner than later, just email me and I'll forward it over to you. Awesome.
Now,
Somebody on
guess
Zoom
for
was
your-
saying
for
something.
your next- Is there a way that you can do more detailed drawings for each of the roads, like say Groton, Dunstable, Middlesex, instead of having, you know what I mean? Just so we get an idea of, you know, what sidewalk, what's bike path. where
Well, that's
the
what,
lines are.
that was part of the drawings. That was some of those, unless you have any other questions about it, then you can channel them up, but that was part of the slides, is the width. That's what I was asking about.
Yeah, that's just kind of like a section through the street. I'm talking more like just a blown up section, because,
Oh, aerial view.
yeah,
Okay.
basically that, but kind of blown up and more detailed. So what's going to be a bike lane? What's going to be?
At the various
Because like you were
intersections.
saying, it doesn't seem like there's a
At the
lot of
different
street space
intersections,
for all
blow it
the
up.
bike lanes and all the, like.
Well, like I said, if you have any questions, email me and I'll get it back to you, and you may have your answer there. If you have any questions, you can keep the dialogue going. Awesome. All right. Just one order of business. Mike, would you like to make a motion to
Yeah,
approve?
motion to approve the April minutes.
Okay, anybody would like to second that? Brian?
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor?
No, we haven't.
Aye. Laura? Aye. Okay, Laura Lynn? And other people are either on mute. Okay, the ayes have it.
We're good.
All right. Thank you again for coming, and we'll look out for this. I'll share this, and it will be out, I'll put a link to this. But these videos go out on Chelmsford Telemedia's website as well, in case you want to revisit. But if you want the plan sooner than later, feel free to email me. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Want to make a motion? Mike makes a motion to adjourn. Brian, you want a second? Okay.
Sure.
All right, all
Good
those
night.
in favor? Aye.
Good night, thank you.
Have a great night, everyone.